Welcome back, everybody, to Dr. Sellars Educate. We're happy to continue to support you on your journey towards success. We are also happy to hear from so many of you about your success on the CNE, CNEcl, and CNE Novice exams. You will see right here in the description one recent testimonial. You can always find all of our testimonials over on our business site, our Google business site, and that is also listed here right in the description. In this episode, we are continuing to focus on our hallmarks of excellence. If this is the first time that you're tuning into this topic, do know that there are other episodes listed right here previously. All right, so for this episode, we're going to focus on hallmark number 6, looking at what support and what resources are required in order for us to ensure that we're delivering a quality nursing program. If you are not familiar with the resources you need to be successful on your journey, you can also find those in our descriptions. You are going to see resources that will help you for the CNE, CNEcl, and CNE Novice exams. And just for purposes of our snapshots, do know that we use the term CNE exam as an umbrella when we talk about getting ready. The content that we are mapping today to the hallmarks of excellence do cross all CNE exams. We're going to talk about specific concepts that you'll see outlined here and mapping back to the actual competencies. Remember that for CNE, there are 8 competencies, and then there are roughly about 8 task statements or competency statements listed underneath those 8 competencies. And then we have CNEcl that has 6 competencies and CNE Novice that has 8 competencies as well. So no matter where you are on your journey, remember that we are here to support you until you are successful. We want to make sure that you are following our 7-week study plan. If this is the first time you're hearing about it, you can go ahead and find more details in our description as well. All right, so let's go ahead and jump into our content. I think that's enough housekeeping tips for now. There is one resource that I want to point to you in the direction of to help you close your knowledge gaps, or if you're not familiar with the NLN Hallmarks of Excellence. This is the website that you're going to go to, and that's also listed right here in the description. A little bit of history about these Hallmarks of Excellence. They simply are behaviors that have been outlined and really researched by NLN based on data that they've gathered from many of us as nurse educator colleagues regarding what it takes to ensure that we are reaching the mark of excellence in our nursing programs and as nurse educators, creating this inclusive learning environment for our students. Our previous snapshots, we focused on engaged students, diverse, well-prepared faculty, culture of continuous quality improvement, innovative evidence-based curriculum, and our last episode was innovative evidence-based approaches to facilitate and evaluate learning. This snapshot focusing on resources to support program goal attainment, specifically looking at how we engage and partner with our community healthcare organizations to ensure students are prepared for the transition to practice, and also making sure that we have all the tools and resources that we need to align with the 21st century innovation and to best prepare our students once they transition into independent practice. So that's a lot of content. One more resource I want to point out to you is going to be the actual PDF document. Okay, so you can click here to actually download the Hallmarks of Excellence. And let's take a quick look at this detailed report as well. Now, in case you're wondering, why is this important to us? Well, it's important for 2 reasons. First of all, if you are on your journey to achieve success, you want to take a deeper dive into these specific hallmarks because they align directly with the CNE competencies. All of the work that NLN does centers around how can we become a better nurse educator. So yes, we are here primarily to support your success to achieve certification, but we want you to maintain your certification. You're working really hard right now if you're on that journey to pass the certification exam. You're working so hard, and we want you to retain all of the validation that you are gaining by achieving that designation and being successful on the CNE exam. The second responsibility that we commit to is helping you become a better nurse educator, okay? So looking at these hallmarks of excellence, really do identify a roadmap and a checklist, if you will, based on these specific behaviors that are outlined underneath each hallmark of excellence. All right, so that's what you're gonna see if we wanna go ahead and scroll to our content for today and looking at Hallmark 6, there are 4 sub-competencies or 4 areas of focus under Hallmark number 6. What you want to do is simply, as we're talking through the content today, make sure that you've printed out your snapshot worksheet, say that 3 times fast, just to make sure that you're staying focused on what you will be identifying as content areas that you will need to brush up on a little bit using Billings and Hallstead, Dr. Caputti's review book, or Teresa Schellenberger's resource if you are on the journey for CNEcl. Okay, so that's the expectation, is that you will review this snapshot, print out your worksheet, identify what your gap areas are, and then use your resources to help you close those knowledge gaps. All right, so let's take a look then at our presentation for today. We're going to go back to looking at our practice question. All right, so some of you I know have already seen our practice question. So let's talk a little bit about how you're going to ensure that you are closing your knowledge gaps and how it aligns with the content that's covered here in this practice question, as well as with Hallmark 6. So as technology advances, nursing faculty should be trained to ensure they are competent. Which strategy would best ensure resources are available for faculty in the nursing department? So we have 4 choices here. If you want to go ahead and pause the video and come back when you have chosen the best answer, that is fine. We are going to continue and looking at the content related to competency, or I should say the competencies aligned with Hallmark 6. Okay, so if you want to pause here and come back when you're ready to proceed. What are these 4 hallmarks that we're talking about? First of all, let's talk about the premise behind supporting program success. In order for us to ensure that our students are walking away with the knowledge, the expertise, and be able to apply the concepts that we talk about in our programs, we want to break it down in a way that we too are committing to alignment with the content that we are including in the course with the actual clinical experiences, to ensuring that we are removing barriers that we identify in the nursing education process as well. Okay, so we want to ensure that we're doing our due diligence in the process of ensuring that we are supporting program success. All right, so where do we start? First, we start with partnerships, making sure that as we explore what those clinical experiences are going to be for our students, ensuring that there's alignment with the experiences and the patient types in that clinical setting, as well as the level of care that is delivered in that clinical setting, and ensuring that there is alignment with the learning objectives that we have identified with our students. So let's take a look at a couple of the indicators. So when you flip over to the resource we just looked at, you will see on page 8 that the indicators specifically align with Hallmark 6.1 ask the question, what are the criteria used to determine the agencies or organizations with which the nursing program will partner? Second question, how are partners engaged with faculty members and students to achieve excellence in the nursing program? When you're going through your competencies to help you validate the knowledge that you have, or if you identify a gap, it's really important that you go to the primary resource. All right, so that's what we're going to do next to make sure that you're reviewing content that's going to help you best answer the question on the CNE exam. All right, so for purposes of Hallmark 6, we are focusing on Billings and Hallstead, pages 546 and 547. We're going to talk a little bit more about that as we look at the answer to our practice question for today. So for now, let's just keep going with Hallmark 6-2. Technology is used effectively to facilitate, support, and evaluate student learning and faculty development. What indicators are aligned with 6.6-2? One question asked, what commitment has the nursing program made to integrate the use of technology throughout the program? One of the distractors in the learning environment is when we as faculty are not competent in how to use the technology. We want to leverage technology to connect with our students and the different types of learners that we have in the classroom. We want to ensure that we're not creating a barrier in the learning process. A key strategy to ensure that that doesn't happen is that we are competent. We are ensuring that we go through the steps associated with the technology that we're going to use. Doing a little test run, right, to make sure all the hyperlinks work. We know they break all the time, and making sure that the resources we are asking our students to utilize, that they indeed align with the objectives and ultimately the purpose of them using that specific technology or using that specific type of active learning strategy that we're hoping that students will be able to utilize. One good example is with Poll Everywhere. If you're teaching online, and if you've joined us here, Dr. Sellars Educate, for any of our webinars, you know that we do like to use Poll Everywhere. Well, it requires that we go through the steps, first of all, to make sure it's set up properly. We as educators, we have a responsibility to complete the training that's needed to validate that we are competent, that we know how to properly set up Poll Everywhere as an example, and that we test it out from a student's perspective. That could mean that we are texting, that we're activating that poll as an example. We're testing that the text works, because that's how Poll Everywhere works, or we're using the QR code if we set it up that way to ensure that the QR code is indeed triggering the activation of the poll. All right, so that's just one example. Whatever technology you're using, you just want to make sure that you follow the process steps that you learn about during the training to ensure that we are not creating those barriers to the learning process whenever we don't know how to fully use the technology that we are trying to help enrich the student's learning experience. And then 6-3. Student support services. We want to make sure that they are culturally sensitive to support all phases of the student life cycle. That starts with recruitment, retention, progression, and graduation. And then last is Hallmark 6-4, financial services, ensuring that we are providing faculty with resources they need in order to maintain scholarship service, as well as achieving a level of excellence in their scholarly work. So whatever the goals are, even if it's competence related to technology as an example, or if they're on their journey to achieving their CNE, making sure that there are resources identified to support faculty to achieve their goals. All right, so that's what 6-4 is all about. This content under Hallmark 6 that we have discussed during this snapshot is aligned to several of our competencies. Specific areas include the application of clinical expertise, the responsibility for us to facilitate learning in the healthcare environment, again, making sure that there is strong alignment between those clinical experiences that students are going to have with the actual learning objectives with the course. And then learner socialization, making sure that we are introducing students to the professionalism of nursing by role modeling those behaviors, and then just talking about any barriers that are cited in the literature or cited in our textbooks as it relates to the importance of delivering high quality, safe care. One good example is incivility, right? So if we are going to develop a module on incivility and talk about specific case studies as an example, we want to make sure that we are using the appropriate technology, and ultimately that students are learning about the specific focus that we have identified in our learning objectives. And then last is the ability to function effectively in the institutional environment. Again, we want to make sure that there are resources available for our faculty, especially for those of you that are in administration, or for us that may not be in administration. We want to raise our hands and advocate for ourselves to identify resources that we may need in order to be a better nurse educator. All right, I know this one was kind of long for this episode, but I appreciate you all staying focused as we kind of talk through each of those 4 very important Hallmark subsets under the value and the importance of providing resources and support for our nursing programs and our nursing faculty. So for our practice question, if you chose D, you are correct. Collaborate between nursing and technology department to plan training needs. This is going to demonstrate our ability to collaborate with our interdisciplinary teams. And yes, the technology department, IT department, is a key contributor to supporting program outcomes. Pages 546 and 547 is where you're going to see a really good description of some specific examples that align directly with the importance of identifying resources to help us ensure that we are providing quality education experiences for our students and also equipping us as nurse educator with the tools that we need in order to be successful. Just like building a house, right? We have to have the right tools. It's no different in nursing education. And NLN has really called out this as a hallmark of excellence. We as nurse educator colleagues across the country that are watching this episode use the hallmarks of excellence as a checklist. That's what we should be doing to open up conversations about best practices and recommendations based on those indicators. How do you line up as you look through all of those indicators, which are really behaviors associated with establishing a nursing program of excellence? What areas do we need to work on? What areas are we already meeting? Okay, so that's the objective and really the outcome that we're hoping to achieve as we talk through each of these hallmarks every single week in our snapshot. And we'll be finishing out our final hallmark in our next week's snapshot, which is hallmark number 7. So hopefully, actually, we have 2 hallmarks. I misspoke. We have 8. So we're going to follow up with hallmark 7. So if you look at your resource on page 9, hallmark 7 is commitment to pedagogical scholarship, which is a really important one. And then hallmark 8, our final one, is when we take a deeper look at effective institutional and professional leadership. We've already kind of opened the door and cracked the window on that one as we talked about the importance of having the resources that we need. As always, we appreciate your likes. We also appreciate you all subscribing to us, and reach out if you have questions. Our website is listed here, as well as the email, which is info@drsellers.educate.com. If you're watching us on YouTube, we appreciate you tuning in with us every single week. If you're listening to us on our podcast, feel free to reach out if you have other questions as well. All right, well, we appreciate your time, and we hope you have enjoyed this episode. Have a great one, everybody. Bye-bye.